Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. And streaming live on YouTube. You can find us there. The Fan KLGN is the YouTube account where you can find our live streams. But however you want to listen to our show live, in the many ways that we now offer it, or on our podcast feed, which you can find at 1069thefan.com or on the mobile app, or pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, or you can find archives of the video live streams we've been doing lately. However you listen, we are always glad to have you on. And if you want to join the conversation, text 435-339-0321. That's the number of the Young Power Sports Logan text line. And me and Eric will get to your text. We have a few of those stacking up already, Eric, as we've got a lot to go over today.
Yes.
We've got a lot of, I've heard the term group therapy thrown out a lot.
Yeah.
We'll do our best, I guess, to provide some of that here with Utah State suffering a 17-point loss to San Diego State, trailed by as much as 24 points to the Aztecs. And really, after about the first 10 minutes of the game, this wasn't really a contest. So we'll get into that. We'll also talk about the Utah Jazz, some idle speculation on whether the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum could have some naming rights changes, or they're selling the naming rights or partial naming rights. New Mexico doing something that maybe Utah State could replicate. We'll also, as a fun treat, at the start of the second hour, at the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to be having on a world-class fisherman or fisherwoman.
Spearfishing.
Is there a gender-neutral term for a fisherman?
I don't know. That's a good question. We'll have to ask her. But she's representing Utah. She's representing Team USA in a competition coming up soon in New Zealand. And so she's qualified to go, but it's expensive to get there. So we'll find out more about what she's done and how you can help get her there.
Yeah, Lily Fuller is her name, so we'll be talking to her in about an hour, so stay tuned for that. Then we'll talk about the Utah Jazz. Fun little controversy, I guess, with reporting, journalism reporting, and retractions of reporting, and Jazz fans getting really mad at Adam Silver, though it may not have been justified in this case. But then we'll go over some interesting transfer portal rule, potential emergency legislation with the NCAA, and also some potential rule changes to the targeting rule or the suspensions around the targeting penalty in college basketball. And we'll have pick six to wrap things up at the end of the show.
That's right. Yes. And I won last week.
Yes, you did.
On the tiebreaker.
So I guess that means you haven't come up with your lines yet.
I mean, of course I have.
Yes, of course. Of course he has. He definitely has. He's definitely not forgotten.
Yeah, so let's get into this game from last night. A late one. If you stayed up,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Did you stay up, Eric?
I did.
Eric kind of has to because he has to wait for my recap
then
to
I
show
have
up.
to twiddle my thumbs for a while.
Lucky for you, though, to tell you how this game went, I had it pretty much 80% done by the time the final whistle blew.
Yeah, there wasn't much that changed in the second half. So the first 10 minutes, it's back and forth. Utah State,
even leaning toward Utah
had a
State.
stretch where Aggies were doing okay, playing from ahead, but then they just stagnated, and San Diego State starts hitting outside shots. A guy that doesn't normally hit a ton of threes hits a ton of threes. You get guys in foul trouble, and the offense was just stagnant for Utah State. They tried to make a push in the second half after getting down big. They tried to get back a little bit, but they just couldn't sustain it. And so just a rough night for Utah State. You could tell this was a really big game for San Diego State, something that we worried about last night. This was a team that was desperate. They were playing to still have some outside shot of making the NCAA tournament as an at-large team. You can't lose 3 games in a row at the end of near the end of the regular season and still hope to get in. Utah State's now going to face that same fate with the game coming up on Saturday where they've lost 2 in a row. But Utah State's in a better position than San Diego was. But just a real sluggish game for the Utah State offense. Eventually they get 72 points. Eventually they get other guys who score. But it was a slog for a really big chunk of the game. And San Diego State punched the Aggies in the mouth, and they didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and here's the thing for me that it comes down to, at least defensively for the Aggies, because this was, at least by point total, their worst game of the season defensively. And I don't know if it was their worst in terms of like points allowed per possession, but it was, if it wasn't, then it was pretty dang close, because they allowed 1.3 points per possession. San Diego State scored 89 points in 67 possessions. The thing that was a huge difference for San Diego State in this one, and I was looking up numbers before the game, thinking about how the Aggies need to try and control this game, and part of it came down to being able to control the paint and limit San Diego State with their finishing in the paint, being able to score at the paint, especially at the rim. And something that I noticed over their last 3 games is that in the 3 games leading up to playing Utah State, they had shot 45.5% at the rim. So layups and dunks, which is actually pretty bad.
Yeah, that's not great. If you're in the paint, you should have a higher percentage.
Yeah, good teams, at the rim are going to shoot 60+%. Maybe slightly under it. So shooting 45, like under 50%, that's terrible. Because again, this is the closest shot you can get, and you're shooting, less than a coin flip's chance. Mm-hmm. And you go back to Utah State, when they played the Aggies, San Diego State shot 10 of 22, which is conveniently also 45.5%. So San Diego State recently, and in the previous game against the Aggies, had shot poorly at the rim, had not gotten a ton of points in the paint. They did get some points in the paint. Again, they hit 10 shots at the rim against the Aggies in the first game. But that was not a place where they could live on offense. The Aggies did a really good job at preventing them from getting effective shots inside. San Diego State scored their first 19 points of the game, all in the paint. 9 field goal attempts and 1 free throw that came off of a fast break where the foul happened in the paint. And then after hitting all those shots inside, didn't even need to. They did attempt some shots outside, but didn't hit them. But they went up. What was it, 19-13, I think was the score when they got their before they hit a three-pointer. So let's see. This was 19-17 actually. The Aggies were actually still leading up until they got to 19-17. Pharaoh Compton hits a layup. And then finally, they get some outside shooting. Reese Dixon Waters hits a three-pointer. Next possession, he hits another one. And, they hit a few more three-pointers. They didn't hit a ton of three-pointers, but they hit some of them. The thing is that San Diego State worked from the inside out. They dominated the paint, got every shot they wanted in the paint. And then when Utah State had to try and adjust a little bit, they then worked to the outside. And they didn't rush any of those three-point shooters. You give it to a guy, Dixon Waters, who shoots 35% from 3. So perfectly capable of shooting wide open corner three-pointers. BJ Davis, another solid three-point shooter. And then Magoon Gwathi gets that, lucky three-pointer at the end. But hey, if you're shooting well, that's the kind of stuff it's going to happen. You're going to get lucky when you create good shots for yourself.
Keep chucking it up. They're playing with momentum. They got a lot of verve. Yeah. Borrow a term from Coach Calhoun, the other Calhoun. They had momentum. They had energy. They had juice. They were making plays. And they had Utah State, as Coach Calhoun said, they were discombobulated.
Yeah, discombobulated. Yeah, and that
was a perfect term, because sometimes you're watching the ball through the air and not getting on their guy, sticking a guy, boxing out, just losing a guy.
Yeah, one play that just continues to stick in my mind was, Pharaoh Compton going from, I think it was dang near the 3-point line, running all the way up for a putback dunk. And who's going to put a body on him? Doesn't have to be the biggest guy on the court. I think they mentioned it was Elijah Perryman might have been the closest guy. Perryman doesn't have to overwhelm a 6'8", 7'2" wingspan guy. If he's running from the perimeter, just put a body on him and he's probably not going to get to the rebound.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a couple times guys had clear paths right down the lane. They didn't have to do a Euro step or anything. Just go right to the rim. And there were, 5 assists in the first half? It felt like Utah State started to get down a little bit. And then everybody felt like, oh, well, I have to make the big shot to get us back. And so there was a lot of one-on-one stuff, a lot of, I'm going to jack up a 3, whether it's a good look or not, to get us right back into this. And then it didn't feel like Utah State was really running its offense. There was a lot of, I don't want to call it hero ball that was going on, but to some degree it kind of was. But also there was some offense, like sets that were happening, but guys just weren't making their shots. So you can't get an assist if no one makes a shot.
Yeah.
And so Utah State just really struggled with their open looks. And too many times, Utah State guards, forwards, whomever, it was endemic. Like everybody had this problem. They would start rolling through the offense and they'd pick up their dribble. And then they'd stand there like kind of surveying the field to see where they should go next. And that's like blood in the water for sharks. And the Aztecs would just swarm on that. And you can't pick up your dribble if you don't know where you're going to go after stopping your dribble. And way too often, Aggie players would pick up their dribble and they'd be swarmed. And then they were like in this tight situation that it was hard to get out of.
Yeah, you need to be able to be confident on the ball and know where you're going. Some of that just comes with having a flow on offense. But San Diego State, they specialize in getting you out of that flow.
Yeah.
They pressure every single pass. And when every single pass is pressured, you don't feel comfortable unless you are confident on the ball, where you're able to dribble through that pressure, you're able to pass through that pressure, pass around the guy, the guy with the long wingspan who's, throwing out his hand to try and prevent you from making that pass, still make it confidently, have it be a sharp pass. And Utah State has struggled to do that now in 2 games against the Aztecs, where they're just bothered by it. It doesn't always necessarily have to be resulting in a ton of turnovers, because that's what happened in the first game, is they just turned the ball over a ton. But here, even where the Aggies only had 12 turnovers, where that's not a bad, that's roughly average. That's pretty well within, a typical game for the Aggies, or really anybody in terms of turnovers. They were still significantly bothered by that length and by the ball pressure. And Utah State has to be able to overcome that. It's not even necessarily about physicality. It's just about the kind of the pressure that, you become susceptible to when you're not confident in your passes and in your dribbling and in the ball movement. You need to be able to fight through that. And that's something that Utah State didn't do. And it ended with them just jacking a bunch of 3-pointers in the first half. They didn't feel confident going into the paint, even though San Diego State only had 3 blocked shots. They didn't block nearly as many shots as they thought they would. And I didn't think that they would, like in terms of when the Aggies went to the rim, I didn't think it was as bad as I thought it was, because the Aggies actually shot 12 of 17 at the rim. That's solid. But the problem is, you look at the first half, they took 17 3-pointers and 4 layups. They made every single layup or dunk they attempted in the first half. They went 4 of 4. Not a single block, not a single miss. But if you only attempt 4, that's a problem.
Yeah.
The 2
sometimes you have to manufacture runs, right? You have to just get a guy on base and then advance him. I know that's not where the analytics normally try to say things or should be going in baseball, but sometimes you have to just find ways to get points on the board and keep yourself in the game. Well, and it felt like Utah State too often was, as the guys on the TV broadcast called it, umbrella offense. Everything was up on top trying to just shoot threes. No one was trying to attack the rim or doing the proper cutting and screening down low. So things just your percentage rates of hitting against that kind of a defense, just relying on outside shots, it's not going to help you get back into the game.
Yeah, it's not. And like you talk about analytics, layups are the golden shot. If you're talking about analytics and points per shot, every offense wants a layup. And if you only attempt 4 of them, you've screwed up somewhere. You have not succeeded if you attempt 4 layups in 20 minutes. You need to take more of those. And if if it takes missing a couple to just be more aggressive, I would rather you go 8 of 13 than only 4 of 4. I know that's, 5 extra missed shots, but that's a few extra points. Is more aggression. You probably got to the foul line a little bit more.
Right.
The Aggie and San Diego State committed 21 fouls in this game. Like, they were fouling the Aggies too.
Put pressure on them.
Yeah, put pressure on them. It's what the Aggies did in the first game. Is they got a bunch of their guys in foul trouble. Gave them fits at times, and Utah State just didn't do any of that in this game. They got a lot better in the second half. I mean, they attempted 17 shots at the rim in the game, 4 in the first half. Do the math. They attempted a lot more in the second half. But I mean, in the second half, it was pretty much over at that point. It didn't matter the decent stuff they did on offense in the second half, where they shot 45% from the field. That was okay. They made 4 3-pointers. And yeah, they got to the rim a lot more. But it was too late. And then the defense was just never on point. Like, really, at no stage in this game was the defense on point. Like, outside of where San Diego State missed 3 3-pointers to start the game. But the third of those 3-pointers, there was a putback layup after it. So,
yeah, if you were to tell me before the game that Utah State would get 12 points from Adlin Elamine and 7 points from Tucker Anderson, I'd think, okay, Aggies are probably going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and you get 18 points from MJ Collins and 14 from Mason Falslev.
Yeah.
You're happy with most everything there.
I think the Aggies are going to be in okay shape, but they're getting that kind of an offensive contribution from those guys. They'll probably get some from a few other guys as well. They should be okay. But it wasn't the case. Just a tough night for Utah State. Now, we'll get into what happened last night in the other games and what happened the night before and how that affects kind of the end of season here. But the concern I have is that Utah State struggled with some things that Nevada did. We know Utah State struggled against Grand Canyon. We know Utah State struggled against UNLV. We know Utah State just struggled last night against San Diego State. Their rosters have a lot of similarities in how they play. Utah State still has to play Grand Canyon. Now, New Mexico is different, but they have to play UNLV again. So the type of roster, the way that it's constructed and the way that they run their stuff that gives Utah State trouble, there's still 2 more of those games to come for Utah State. And they've struggled these last 2. That last night was frustrating, and it's never fun to watch the team that you've tried to follow lose by the margin that they lost. But I'm more upset and troubled by what happened in Reno than what I saw happen last night in San Diego. Which, you know what, it was a closer game. They competed and they almost got it. And last night, they just got blown out. They just didn't look like they were in the game. There are aspects of that true, but what's frustrating is that in stretches of that Nevada game, one of a dozen different things goes better for Utah State, and they win that game. Last night, you needed a lot of things to go better, and go better in a really big way. Whereas in Nevada, just one little thing goes better for Utah State. One minor focus to detail gets you that win. Last night, they were out of that game for a long time.
Yeah. We need to take a break, and I want to get to this, talk a little bit more about what's concerning, what maybe isn't concerning, the things that Aggie fans should or shouldn't be worried about, at least in my opinion. But I want to bring up one more thing that is concerning, and it stems from the last couple of games. And that's offensive rebounds, Utah State giving up offensive rebounds. They gave up double-digit rebounds when Nevada shot 50+% from the field. San Diego State shot 54% from the field, and they got 12 offensive rebounds. When San Diego State missed a shot or a free throw and there was an opportunity for a defensive rebound, 40% of the time they were getting it. There were 30 opportunities for a rebound for Utah State to grab a defensive rebound, and they only got it a little more than half the time. That cannot happen, and it's continually happening, and it's something that needs to stop being a trend.
Yeah,
which is part of my point. We'll get into next. Is we're going to take a break. Is again, nothing that's happening in a single game for the Aggies against Nevada, against San Diego State, should in and of itself be concerning. But when trends start forming, those are the things to be concerned about, and those are the things that the Aggies need to be able to reverse. So we'll talk about that next. We'll also get to your texts. We got a lot of texts rolling in, so we'll get to those next as we continue talking about Utah State's loss to San Diego State and the impact it'll have for the Aggies going forward. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. Group therapy session.
That's right.
For Aggie fans. If you want to text in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. That's the number you can text. Send your thoughts into myself, Jason Walker, and Eric Frandsen, and you'll be able, and we'll talk about whatever you send in on the air.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't get us in trouble with the FCC.
Yeah, that's true. Nah, nobody's ever really tried to get us in trouble there.
We'll make you pay the fine.
9310 saying, like Calhoun said, only 3 more practices this season. Can't change much this late in the season. Hope we can avoid slap fouls that mess with game flow. Aggies offense and defense thrive on flow.
Yeah, the slap fouls. That's right. Way too many of those, especially off of rebounds.
Utah State, I was looking at some of the numbers. In the last 5 games, they rank, let's see, they're in the 13th percentile in floor fouls, i.e. non-shooting fouls. So like that's bottom 50 in the nation. I didn't have like an exact 1 through 365 ranking. They gave this all in percentiles. So I don't know the exact rank, but yeah, over the last 5 games, that everyone in the country, 13th percentile. Like in shooting fouls, they're in the 26th percentile, but at least that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
They commit so many, rebound fouls, loose ball fouls, just guarding on the perimeter fouls.
There are a few
non-shooting foul type stuff.
Few things more frustrating than when an Aggie player is at the free throw line, misses a free throw, the other team gets the rebound, and Aggies are slapping at them, and then clock stops, and the other team goes down to the other end, and they get free points.
Yeah.
Like, that is so frustrating, and that happens too often, especially here lately for Utah State.
Yeah, and again, over those last 5 games, the Aggies are in the 9th percentile in fouls per game. So, like, even worse, just overall. Like, they committed 23 fouls against Nevada, 25 against San Diego State.
I mean, I get trying to be aggressive and try to poke the ball loose, and I get that, and sometimes you're just making a play, and it's hard to get frustrated with the player trying to make a play when that's kind of your calling card, your defensive identity. But there's a difference between that and just slapping, get your arms out of place and not playing defense with your body and your feet instead of just playing with your hands.
Yeah. And to talk more about what Calhoun talked about after the game, like it not being about like scheme or whatnot, he said, yeah, that's obviously something they're doing. There's scheming and there's coaching and there's figuring out, how to attack, defenses and, how to defend against ever evolving offenses. But everyone knows each other's sets at this point. Everyone has watched everyone else's games. They know what they run. They know what their favorite plays are. They know what their favorite sets are. They knew who the key players are in the scouting report. It's just, as Calhoun said, it's just about who's hungrier, who wants it more, who's actually going to put in that effort, who's going to maintain that effort throughout the entire game and from game to game. The Aggies currently are not, at least in their last 2 games. Moving on in the text line, 2444 saying, last night's game was ugly, but on the positive side, I think our odds for a conference title are still pretty good. Bartorvik agrees. And and sending in a screenshot here, the Aggies, it shows the percentage chance of all the teams to either have a share of the Mountain West title or sole possession of it. The Aggies at a 79.5% chance for a share of the title and 45.4% at a sole possession of the title. Like, yeah, the Aggies, like, for all of how last night terrible was, like the worst case scenario for the Aggies happened.
Yep.
And they are tied for first with 3 games left.
Yeah. And there's still 25 in the net.
Yeah.
So Utah State, 2 of their last 3 games are at home. San Diego State, 2 of their last 3 are on the road, at New Mexico and at Boise. And then their home finale is with UNLV. So neither team really has an easier path to the end. But at least for Utah State, more of those games are at home. And the one on the road, it's a team that beat you last time, but Coach Jared Calhoun gets his guys pretty fired up that teams don't beat the Aggies twice in a season.
Yeah. 5452 saying, I know Calhoun said a while ago they were working to get players re-signed for next season. Do we know how that has gone? I think I tried to follow up with Calhoun about that a couple weeks ago, and he basically dodged the question. So I could follow up again. Probably dodge the question again, but I can try and follow up with him.
I don't know.
The 9-3-1-5. Let's see. Was there a couple of texts here?
A number coming through here.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
You want to try them?
Okay, sure. I'll go off the first one. Feels like we're headed toward an uncomfortable conversation about trading that mid-month bye week for the Memphis game. There was no way to know that Memphis would be such a low-value win, but Utah State looks gassed. That part was absolutely predictable. This worked out about as poorly as it could have for the Aggies. Hopefully they don't try and schedule random non-cons in mid-February for a while. That was a quote from Stockton Jukes. And then one thing that is driving me nuts is fouling three-point shooters. Take the proper angle and stop doing it. It's really not that hard. Attention to detail thing. Defense has been concerning for the Aggies. And then am I crazy or biased, or is Utah State's aggressiveness being curbed while SDSU's is being encouraged by the whistle? What resents coach was denied an extension to his contract?
That's related to...
According to an article I read, help a fellow Aggie out. And then why did one ref try to break the record for calling fouls yesterday? And a lot felt ticky-tacky fouls when what happened, no way for USU to do what they do best and push and run the floor. Okay, so a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
But basically, Scheduling Memphis, I still believe was the right thing to do.
There's no reason to wring your hands over that at all. There's just 0 point. And I know it comes from Stockton, but like there's no reason to wring your hands over it. There's no reason to, like, again, feeling some regret. Sure, you wish it would have gone better, but
Duke just played Michigan.
Yeah,
just like last week, and everybody's praising, like, what a smart move.
Yeah,
you're out of conference, but you're playing a top team, and yes, it was a good thing to do.
Yeah,
would it have been advantageous for the team to take a break and have some rest? Probably.
Yeah,
but you got to build up your resume and get as many opportunities to make some noise. And then the 3-point shooting, fouling on 3-point shots, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it's dumb.
You got to know the angles. You can't come at a guy and close out on somebody, come right at them and land right under their feet.
Yeah.
And then act like, raise your hands like, what did I do? Well, it's painfully obvious what you did.
Yeah.
You should know better than what you did. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, and it just comes from, you only foul a 3-point shooter when you got beat, on that particular pass where you were too late and you're too desperate to try and close out. That's your own dang fault. And yeah, the Aggies foul 3-point shooters. Again, the numbers, show it that they do it way more often than anyone else. So that they need to stop doing it. And it's just about discipline. 8968 saying the Aggies chose the wrong day to have the worst game they played all year. Yeah, definitely.
You know what? Yeah, it's frustrating to have your worst game. But if you're going to have your bad game, at least do it at a place like Viejas.
Yeah.
A storied place. It's hard for anybody to win against a name brand opponent. I mean, if they had their worst game at Wyoming, then I'd be a lot more concerned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's frustrating that they had a bad game, but it could be worse. It could have been worse. I can think of worse places for Utah State to have their worst game.
Yeah. 5662 saying, do we blame these last two losses on tired bodies and minds due to the skip by for the Memphis game or athletic bigs or the Aztecs being backed into a corner and desperate for a win? Nevada loss hurts much more. Last night, not so much. Yeah, again, it could be, not getting as much rest because
I
of playing
didn't see
Memphis.
a team that was gassed.
Yeah.
I didn't see an Aggie team that just looked lethargic. That's not what I saw last night. Were they not as refined? Yeah. Did they settle for outside shots? Yeah. But I didn't see a team that looked like they had cement shoes. Like I saw guys that were running around. I just didn't see them executing it right. I saw a team that was active, just not in the right ways. So I reject this theory that Utah State was out of gas and that they're tired. I reject that because that's not what I saw. I saw a team that struggled and didn't play very well, but I didn't think it's because they were tired or that they didn't have that extra rest day. I reject that notion.
And to me, when I look at these two games and you think, okay, is this going to be like last year where the Aggies stumbled late? And, you also look, okay, are there teams that can exploit the Aggies' weaknesses? You think, okay, what Nevada and San Diego State did to the Aggies as far as being able to force a ton of fouls inside. Again, the Aggies committed 48 fouls in the last two games against the Aztecs and against the Wolfpack, and all these things. To me, I don't know if it's a matchup problem because when I look at the whole body of evidence, Utah State held San Diego State to 62, 63 points in the first matchup. They held Nevada to 62 points in the first matchup. The Aggies scored almost the exact same number of points. I think, what was the score of the previous game between Utah State and San Diego State? It was 71-66.
71-66.
The Aggies scored 72 points. Like, it was something that Calhoun pointed out.
Offensively consistent.
They haven't won a game against, Utah State was 3-1 against San Diego State in Coach Calhoun's tenure. He said they haven't won a single game with their offense. It's been about defense every single time.
Yeah, against Nevada, the first meeting, the Aggies only gave up 62.
Yeah.
And last week they gave up 80.
And so to me, this is about Utah State just being inconsistent and not playing to their potential. Because you could all say, well, what about when they give up 83 to Wyoming? Well, they held Wyoming to 62. They held Memphis to 75, pretty solid. They played well against Boise, who has size. Like Utah State has played against teams that have size, that have length, that have talented and versatile bigs, and have won. Sometimes have won big. New Mexico, they got that Bullion kid who's one of the best bigs in the country, or at least in the conference, if not one of the best, at least freshman bigs in the country. They held New Mexico to 66 in their own dang gym.
Right.
So to me, this isn't a Utah State has this fundamental flaw about them. This fundamental flaw in their bigs or their guards, because for every single game you want to point to and said the Aggies sucked in this game and therefore everything about, the wing defenders are terrible, the bigs are terrible, every game you want to point to, last 2 games included, especially last night, and you say, this is who they are. I can bring you 2 or 3 or 4 games in which every single weakness they displayed against San Diego State and Nevada and UNLV and Grand Canyon were not weaknesses. In fact, were strengths in a previous game.
They coached around it.
Yeah, the Aggies, well, not even coached around it. They just played better.
Yeah.
Like against San Diego State, what was the scheme in the first game against San Diego State that was so much better? Like, point to me the scheme. Like, is Carson Templin, can he just not handle San Diego State? That ain't it, because he had a fantastic game against them in the last time. He had 18 points, hit a couple of 3-pointers. Like, Utah State has a good example, and even a recent example, of playing well against teams that supposedly have these bigs that can just toss the Aggies around. So it is not this systemic problem with the roster or the coaching or the scheme. It is just the players and coaches being on the same page and executing the game plan when they're out there on the court. And we've talked about this a few times, how the numbers tend to show the Aggies just overperform and underperform in a lot of these games. Right now, they're underperforming. Do they fix these things? The sky seems to be falling now, but, I was throwing around the alarm bells when they lost to UNLV and Grand Canyon, making those comparisons to last year.
Yep. Then
they held 4 straight opponents to under 67 points. And then, after that, they went on an 8-game winning streak overall, including several blowout wins. That's what happened the last time they looked like they were falling to pieces. They turned it around. And they didn't need a break, some rest last time to do it. 3 days after losing to UNLV, they go on the road and they beat Colorado State after a rough first half. And then they just, continue from there, go on an 8-game win streak. Didn't get a bye. They just manned up and played better.
Right. Well, and they blitzed some of these teams. So they weren't like stressed. Like it wasn't the stress on the body so much because they were just absolutely destroying these teams.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were eking out a bunch of wins. They were blowing teams out. So, the 2 losses in a row, do we raise alarm bells and do we freak out? No. There a level of concern? Sure, there should be. But Utah State is still in a good position. They're tied for first in the Mountain West. They have the best resume in the Mountain West. They have the best metrics in the Mountain West. They've still got 3 tough games ahead of them, but 2 of those 3 are at home in your great venue, which has proven difficult for opponents to find victories in.
Yeah.
So let's not freak out. Utah State has had some challenges against teams with these types of rosters, but they've also shown and proven that they can work through that and still beat these types of teams. It's not a total kryptonite that will bring them down every time they face it.
Yeah, so to me, when I look at these last 2 games, I don't see this extreme worry about scheme or personnel or capability with the Aggies. To me, it's about, is this going to become a trend? Because if it becomes a trend, then the Aggies might find themselves going 1-2 over these last 3 games. If they are able to just, reverse some of these trends again, because they're not going to change the scheme. You can't really change anything about that. You can't change who's on the team. It's just going to be about playing better, playing like you did against San Diego State in the first game, playing like you did against Boise State or against Memphis or against New Mexico.
Yeah, playing with purpose.
Yeah, play like that team.
Be aggressive.
Yeah, against teams that have bigger size and in some cases better athletes. Utah State went out there and just, opened up a can of whoopee on an opponent. they've gone out and done that. They could have done that to Nevada or San Diego State. And, not to say they would have blown out those teams in their venue, but heck, they blew out New Mexico in the pit. So, anything's possible. The Aggies just didn't play to their peak. San Diego State, that was the worst version of the Aggies we've seen. And Nevada, that was a mediocre version of the Aggies, and they still dang near won. So if we see a better version of the Aggies, they can go 3-0. Like, the sky's not falling until it actually collapses.
They're absolutely capable of winning all 3 of these games and playing well through the conference tournament. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that really ends up being my takeaway. We can talk all day about all the terrible things that, went into losing to San Diego State by 17 points. And the concern is justifiable for losing 2 straight games. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and assign losses to the Aggies in the next 3 games. Because, again,
this is a good team
and
coached by good coaches.
Yeah, and San Diego State, to their fans, the sky was falling after they lost 2 games in a row coming into this one. And then they just watched their team put belt to the Aggies' butt in their venue. They're back. So how about the Aggies go out there and you got Grand Canyon? That'd be a nice team to blow out. And that's something that Utah State could get back into the flow of things. So that's just the key for the Aggies. Nothing is going to fix, rest isn't going to fix the Aggies. Scheme change isn't going to fix the Aggies. It's just going to be about refocusing and playing to the caliber of team that Utah State is. That's what's going to fix this. Not, again, wringing your hands over whether or not you played Memphis and avoided a bye game. It's just about getting back into the flow of things that Utah State can control. But we got to hit a break. We're about 3 or 4 minutes overdue for that. So we'll get to that. We'll also, thinking about potentially changing the Spectrum naming rights. Speaking of the pit, there's some interesting news that came out about the pit and the naming rights to that arena. And could the Aggies follow suit with their own arena? We'll talk about that next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. And a reminder, the Best of Northern Utah contest is back, presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. Nominate your favorite businesses, the places you love, the people you trust. Who's the hidden gem more people should know about? The business you'd recommend without even thinking about it. The local legend that's been serving the community for decades. This contest is how we recognize the best businesses in town. Nominate them at bestofnorthernutah.com. So, Eric, some news today as coming out of New Mexico, as they've sold the naming rights, kind of. It's still going to be called the Pit, or technically, the Pit isn't even its official name.
No.
It's just
just what it's known by.
It's the universal nickname. It's like how Tiger Woods has an actual first name that I keep forgetting what it actually is, but they call it the Pit. It's a University Arena. Isn't there a football stadium, University Stadium or something like that? Or no, or is it Dreams? Or I suddenly can't remember.
I don't remember.
In Wyoming Arena, there's this Arena Auditorium. But so it's going to be the Pit, powered by Nusenda. Nusenda, that's how you say it. So,
which is apparently a local credit union.
Yeah, it's a credit union. So they've basically for a 10-year
$17.7 million naming rights.
I was looking at this and it said 1.74 million, but I think that's an annual thing. So that's what
it averages over.
Yeah, that's what it averages. That's what I remember seeing the 17 million. Then I saw the press release where it was like, has this, and so I wasn't 100% sure there. So, just looking at the math there was a little confusing there. So yeah, the interesting thing about this was the fact that, I look at Utah State, do they consider doing something similar? Because changing the name of the Pit or the Spectrum is basically off the table. That is something that fans might revolt over.
Yeah.
And it's all tied in branding, like obviously with Utah State and Spectrum Magic and all that. Like I don't think it would fit nearly as well if I don't know, random local business, Magic, iFit Magic or something like that. Cache Valley Electric Magic. I don't think it would hit nearly as well.
Crumble Magic.
Yeah, Crumble Magic. Yeah, but stapling on the Spectrum powered by Cache Valley Electric or whoever you want to put in there, whatever local business. What's the name of the roller coaster company? Whatever.
SNS Sports.
Yeah, any company that wanted to put that on there, could that be a revenue stream they go for?
Well, that's a good question. I'd heard rumors that of a company, a name that's already been thrown out there, had been in discussions about maybe having naming rights. It was kind of going down that road a little bit, but then it kind of got nixed. And I think because of some of those discussions about, it is the Spectrum. Now, D. Glenn Smith, whose name is really on the Spectrum, is from what I understand, the founder of Smith's
it was a grocery
stores. Though I don't know that that's really widely known and is connected, because we don't see Smith's the grocery store brand anywhere in there.
It's just named after the guy because he was obviously old community. I imagine didn't he donate a lot of money to the building? I imagine
he had to
the physical construction.
It
I think he made big donations there. So obviously, I don't know the full history there, but yeah, it's just named after the dude, not his grocery chain.
Right.
So, is that something that the Aggies could go after? We need to take a quick break.
The short answer is yes.
They
need to find money wherever they can.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful about how you do it.
Yeah. So we'll take a quick break. We'll kind of continue this conversation on the other side. We've also got another text coming in. So we'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press. Batteries, headlights, wiper blades, they're all in stock and on sale now at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts locations. Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits are only $49.99. Pick up the last bags of Blue Heat Ice Melt, just $10. We got air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, seafoam, and more. Again, all on sale at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores. We got locations from Preston all the way to Providence. A text on the Young Power Sports Logan text line 8632 saying the hashtag Calhoun collapse is happening, same as last year.
I don't know.
Don't write it in just yet.
Yeah.
Could it happen? We'll see. But I think that is an overreaction at this point.
A little too early to tell. How they look on Saturday may reveal definitively one way or the other.
If they lose to Grand Canyon, then the collapse is probably on. But until and unless that happens, a 2-game losing streak is not a collapse. It's a 2-game losing streak.
Yeah. Yep.
Playing 2 games on the road against 2 top 5 teams and losing both of those games, there are worse things that could happen. But the one thing that I kind of want to come back to with the naming rights, like, finding a way, could you get somebody to, again, not change the name of the Spectrum, but add some kind of naming rights to it? Perhaps. I don't know if you're going to get $17 million out of it over a 10-year period. Of course, you're still looking at the, Merlin Olsen Field, the naming rights for Maverick Stadium. The Mavericks paying, they're not even halfway through that deal, and it's $6 million, $6.3 million.
Yeah, it was so cheap. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, like Utah State really shot themselves in the foot.
They were just looking for guaranteed money to help offset and use as loan against other projects that were going on.
Just ridiculous there. Because that's $280,000 a year.
Yeah,
like that.
So there'd be some great opportunity, and it has some real value. Is there somebody who would step up and do it? I don't know. I mean, there's some pretty notable companies that have started here that have definitely grown beyond the borders of Cache Valley.
Yeah. Utah State's looking for more corporate sponsors, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But that's going to do it for us in this hour. We're going to be interviewing a world-class spear fisherman coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Stick around, and we'll have some discussions on that. And then later in the hour, we'll talk some Utah Jazz, among other local sports, here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on YouTube at The Fan KLGN. Glad to be on with you guys. And of course, we've got a special guest on with us for the start of this hour, Lily Jarvis Fuller with us. Glad to have you on.
Hi, it's good to be here.
So she's not just somebody that wanted to come in and hang out.
Yeah,
she's like world renowned.
Yeah, world-class fisherman. Although I've mentioned this a couple of people saying we're having on like a world-class fisherman, but the problem is fisherman the proper gender-neutral term, or do we even say fisherman because you're a spearfisher?
I am a spearfisher, and I just say spearfisher.
Okay, so we'll go with that. I say fisherman because I'm just used to when you catch fish, you're a fisherman. But that's the question I wanted to ask is like I want to get these terms, I want to get them down properly here.
Totally.
So what's cool about your story, Lily, and we've just have come to realize this and learn this ourselves, is that you're from the state of Utah. You're going to school here at Utah State. And we'll find out a little bit more about spearfishing itself. But what's kind of interesting about the timeliness of this is that you're representing Utah. In fact, you're representing USA in an international competition.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into that, like where it is and all that, let's help us understand spearfishing compared to if you got a pole and a rod or you're fly fishing. Like those two I understand. When I think of spearfishing, I'm thinking of somebody like in the Caribbean or some native person trying to like get their fish in a very native, primitive kind of way.
Right.
So walk us through like spearfishing, what exactly that is and how it's different or similar to some of the other modes of fishing that maybe we're all familiar with.
Totally. So with spearfishing, you're in the water all the time. You're fully submerged the whole time. There are a couple different types of spearfishing. There's pole spear, which is where you have like a rod connected to a bungee, and there's spear gun, and that's what I use is a spear gun. And there are a couple different other types, but that's mainly what I use. In Utah, the visibility in lakes is pretty bad, so you would usually use a shorter gun because you can only see 3 to 5 feet in front of you.
So this is a question I saw a lot of people like when they're watching the Olympics and they see some of these sports a little out of the mainstream, and ask questions that some people ask like, how do you realize that you're good at this? Like, how does that come about, and how do you get into something like spearfishing and realize that you're pretty darn good at it?
Honestly, I've always loved water sports. I've always loved fishing, diving, swimming, whitewater rafting, and my husband introduced me to spearfishing. And the very first time, I think, honestly, I shot the first fish when we went, and I immediately fell in love with it, and it was the exact kind of aggression and competitiveness I was looking for in a form of fishing, where fly fishing, I love that. I love rod and reel, but spearfishing is a lot more aggressive, hands-on, you're in the water, and I really love that.
So as you said, like spearfishing in Utah, it's got to be a challenge because we don't have great clear water lakes around here. So does that make that more of a challenge? And learning through that, has that made you better, a more proficient spearfisher person when you're out in some other bodies of water? I
like to think so. I mean, when I train in Utah, I'm training in water where I maybe have at best 8 to 10 feet of visibility. So when I go to places like Mexico and I'm hoping in New Zealand, I'll have up to 20 feet of visibility or more. That gives me a head of the game because I have trained in water where I can only see 10 feet.
So how do you go about, I guess what's the process like? Just walk us through the process of catching a fish. I mean, you talk about you can barely see through the water, but obviously, unlike with the bait and reel, you can wait for the fish to come to you. But like, how is that process of spearing the fish in the end?
Right. So there's a lot of different techniques, and every single fish has a different way you'd hunt it. Okay, similar to an animal. So, for example, a striper in Lake Powell, you go down to the bottom and you don't move. You sit there. You wear a weight belt. You stay still. You slowly move your head back and forth, and you wait for these schools of fish to come up, and then you take your shot. Whereas some fish, catfish in New Zealand, for example, you might be actively swimming looking for the fish. So there's a lot of different ways, and every fish, game fish, small fish, have a different way of hunting them.
Which of those is your favorite?
Here in Utah, our options are kind of slim. I went to Flaming Gorge a couple months ago, and I had the opportunity to shoot lake trout. that was super awesome. We were about 10 to 15 feet down, and if you wait long enough, you just see these big schools. And they say towards the end of the schools, there's the biggest fish. So I like waiting, being patient, and walking away with the biggest fish, ideally.
So you got into this sport. You're enjoying it. How does that go from just casually having fun, learning how to go get some fish, to I'm going to compete at this?
I'm a very competitive person for me. So when I noticed that there was an opportunity to build up and move up to the world championship, I really wanted that. When I learned that I could get women's world records or dominate men's world records, I wanted to do that and I wanted to pursue that. So I think knowing that that was a chance for me, I immediately wanted to start pushing. I also live in a community of spear fishermen where there are great connections. So I have a lot of great connections to the ways I can build higher and higher in this sport.
So what are kind of some of the accomplishments? You mentioned records and things like that. What's kind of the list of accomplishments you've gone through to help get to this level where you're at?
Right. I think a lot of it is just being able to go with people who have competed at world championships, has given me the opportunity to dive with people who can help me qualify. And so when they see me shoot world record fish, that's a good thing to put on my resume. They know that I'm capable and qualified to be their teammate, to be their dive partner.
So, I mean, where are these competitions held to qualify, to advance and be able to represent Team USA?
So they're honestly all over the U.S. There are a lot held in Utah. So the National Freshwater Spearfishing Association, the NFSA, they hold a lot of competitions here in Utah. So Fish Lake has a big one every single year where you can qualify. There's also a lot of online tournaments where the whole U.S. as a nation competes. And a lot of time the winners will get chosen to compete in the world's level.
Wow, that's so cool. So we've kind of danced around this. We haven't really gone clear out and mentioned it. You've kind of alluded to it too, but you're going to an international competition. You're headed to, you've qualified to compete in New Zealand. Is that, let me ask you first, is it freshwater? Is it in the ocean? How similar or different are those? Have you competed in either one of those?
So I've never competed in saltwater, and this is a freshwater world championship. So we will be in Lake Taupo in New Zealand for 2 days, and we'll be hunting catfish. They're invasive there. I kind of see this competition as endurance-based. So over the course of 2 days, 12 hours, you are shooting as many catfish as you can, and you're expected to be in the water all day, every day, shooting as many. So yeah, it's kind of an endurance thing. I see it as, and it's in New Zealand.
So is it judged by the number of fish and just your total volume or weight, or is it a combination of both?
It's a little bit of both. So they do count your number of fish, and then they also take an cumulative weight of all those fish, and that's added to your final score.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you what was the process of being invited to this? How did that all end up coming about?
So in my spearfishing community, I am able to dive with a lot of great people who have either been to the World Championship before or are actually on the board of who gets to qualify and who gets to decide who competes. So I was lucky enough to be able to fish with a lot of amazing divers and get chosen to go and compete in the mixed teams.
So New Zealand, from what I understand, I've never been there. Beautiful country, beautiful island. That's far away. It can't be cheap to get there. So that's part of the story that we're learning, is that not only is it cool that someone going to Utah State qualifies for this opportunity to compete on an international level representing the United States, but you need a little help to get there. What are some ways that people can help you, those who are interested in helping you get there to compete and represent not only Utah, but also the United States? Right.
I'm so grateful. I have a lot of support. I have a lot of sponsorships as of now, helping me get things like gear. I do have a website, it's freshwaterlily.com. And there I have a GoFundMe, I have my Venmo, and I just take any support from people. I'm really grateful for anything that I get, and I am really lucky to have that support.
So when you go on these competitions, especially with this one coming up in New Zealand, you said you're going to be 12 hours in the water.
Mm-hmm.
you got to have some kind of support system. Does Team USA provide that, or is this an opportunity to bring your wingman to help you with some of that, or what's that process like? Because I can't imagine being in the water, underwater for that long. You got to come up for air and food and water yourself every now and then. What's that process like?
As much as my wingman wishes he could be in the water with me, you're actually not allowed to have anyone in the water with you besides your dive partner. So as far as I'm aware, that means I will have a dry bag with food, water, I don't know, ibuprofen. I'll probably need that. Hydration. That's going to be my kind of form of support. And I'm used to diving for 8 hours. And so I think my body is prepared. And so that's kind of our only support as that goes. And I think we're all pretty used to that.
One of the texters on our text line asking, and I kind of had this thought too, because you mentioned just being under the water for a long time. Mm-hmm. This using just some kind of scuba gear essentially for breathing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I free dive, so I don't actually use any kind of scuba gear. That scares away the big fish. So I just hold my breath, and I do a lot of training to prepare for that. So no scuba gear, just my fins, weight belt, dive mask.
So how long have you held? Can you kind of safely hold your breath in these situations?
Safely is a great way because there's an unsafe way to do it and a safe way to do it. I mostly average probably sit down there for a minute, maybe minute 20 at most, and it totally depends. Sometimes you dive down, and within 10 seconds you might see the biggest fish you ever see in your life. Sometimes you dive for 8 hours in a day, and every single dive is a minute, and you don't see anything. But usually a minute average. I try not to push it.
Boy, that's a lot of up and down.
Yeah.
How deep are these waters? I mean, how deep is this lake? How far down are you going?
So I've done a lot of research, and it really just ranges. A fish can choose to be deep in the water that day. They can choose to be on the surface. These are catfish, so they like to hide in a lot of the bushes in the water. So that can be usually from 10 to 20 feet. So you're on the surface, you're looking, and then you dive.
So this is they're on the southern hemisphere. So this is probably coming into they've been in the summer. They're probably still a little bit in the summer season for them.
Yeah.
Does that change anything have you had much experience with catfish and that knowledge? Does that help translate to what you're going to go through?
I've been in Lake Powell and there's catfish there. However, I've never specifically targeted catfish before. So it has been a learning curve. I have been doing a lot of research, making sure I'm aware of where these creatures like to live in the water.
So I want to ask about stories, because I was getting stories from people who come in here. I guess just tell us about some of the biggest fish you ever caught, or the classic fisherman story, the biggest one that got away.
Oh my, do I have a couple of those. So what I mentioned earlier, I have a couple women's world records. They are unofficial. So I think that was my 4th time ever spearfishing. I was at Deer Creek, and it was the middle of the day, and I'm looking down 5 feet under the water, and I see this huge fin. And I was like, what is that? That has to be the biggest walleye I've ever seen. So I dive down, I spook it, but I just wait there. I'm sitting and I'm waiting, and I see it come back. And I take a shot on that walleye, and it was a woman's world record. So I measured it, and I weighed it, and I thought that was all I needed to get this record. So later for dinner that night, we had a camp cookout, and we cooked the walleye, and my family ate it for dinner. And the next day I had a friend reach out to me and say, hey, that walleye was so big. Did you know that was a woman's world record? And of course it was too late. I had eaten that. And sadly, I hate to admit that's actually happened to me 3 times. Let's see, one.
So what's required to actually get that recorded as a world record, other than what else was required of you to officially record that as a world record?
Now I'm a pro. I know exactly what you need to do to get a world record fish. So it's actually a pretty lengthy system on the IUSA spearfishing records. You have to measure the girth, the length. You have to get it weighed on a certified scale. So that's going to be like a butcher, a meat processing plant, which are not easy to find. You're in Mexico and you spearfish something, you're not going to find something like that. So it is a big process, and even then it takes weeks for them to be sure that that's actually a record. You also have to save that fish in the freezer for days until it gets officially qualified. So it is a really big process.
I mean, I feel like we should just trust the fishermen. Fishermen are known for fishes. They're world renowned for being reliable on reporting the size of the fish they catch.
That's right.
So if there's one thing we know about people who fish.
Yeah, that's true.
But
So you've had one that got away, or maybe not quite recorded properly. But what's the I guess the population of spear fishermen, especially among women? And like, is it a pretty crowded field? Is it pretty niche? And so there are some great opportunities for someone who's passionate about it to claim a lot of world records and move up the chain and compete on an international stage.
I mean, if you're looking at Utah, the community is so small. I mean, you open that to coastal towns, it gets a little bit bigger. But specifically for women, there are not that many women that are competing, especially at the international level. So that is my goal here. I want to go to New Zealand this year with my dive partner. I'm in mixed teams right now, but next year I hope to go back and find a girl who will go with me. And there's a lot of opportunity for women spearfishers right now because there is such a little pool of them. They can really work their way up the ladder very quickly and do a lot of awesome things. So that's kind of my goal.
Wow.
Curious obviously there is the short term, this wonderful opportunity. You know, what does this look like for you long term? Like, as far as down the line, like how long you believe you can do this? Well, obviously, there's a lot of endurance. So I don't know how long a career in spearfishing can last, but what does this look like for you over the course of your lifetime?
I mean, I'm a swimmer, and I've always been an open water endurance distance swimmer, and part of that means I keep doing it year after year. So along with that, I hope to continue in my spearfishing endeavors. Of course, it's like a seasonal thing with seasons of life as you go through changes, you know, having a family, all of that obviously changes. But I do hope to keep that, and then especially in the next 3 to 5 years, really push myself and see how far I can go in this sport, and then see where that goes. I mean, I hope it'll be something that I do forever.
So when does this take place in New Zealand? Like, when are you leaving, and how long will you be there?
So I'm actually leaving in 8 days. The competition, very soon. The competition isn't till the 13th of March. So I've just been preparing for this past year, working up to it, and I will be there for almost a month. Of course, the competition is only a couple days a week, but when in New Zealand, you might as well go explore.
Might as well.
Is part of that process just acclimation, doing your own field study, if you will, of your surroundings and the lake that you'll be participating in, or do they have other things planned for you while you're there?
I mean, it's 24 hours of travel, so I'm going early so I can acclimate to everything, really. It's a lot of traveling, and with spearfishing, you need to be healthy to be able to do that. They do have a lot of things planned for us, a lot of activities, dinners, potlucks, scouting events, knowing where the fish are. So, yeah, there's a lot been planned and a lot of work put into this event, and I'm really excited to see how it goes.
So I just kind of one more question, kind of another frivolous one, but I imagine the answer to this question in the immediate future is New Zealand, but what is one place that you really want to be able to go fish at some point?
Man, that's a hard question. I have seen people fish in Norway and shoot the biggest halibut I've ever seen. I've gone to Alaska a couple times to attempt to spear halibut, and I've not been successful. So one day, potentially, I don't know, this year, next year, I hope to be able to go to Norway and shoot some big fish.
Where you are somebody who lives in Utah, you train at elevation, and then you're going down to, I don't know the elevation of where you're going, but could that be an advantage and help you in kind of this situation, or does that really not play much of a factor?
Oh, it definitely helps. I mean, I went to Mexico earlier in January, and that difference was huge. I'm able to hold my breath for way longer. I don't get as tired. All those things attribute to your ability to shoot more fish and stay in the water for longer.
And you can tell that it's noticeable.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so one more time, how can people, if they're interested, find out more about your journey, but also if they're inclined to help financially get you there, how can they do that?
So I have an Instagram. It's freshwater shoddy with 3 Y's. So you guys should look that up. It shares more about my journey going to New Zealand. I'll be posting a lot and sharing. I also do have a website, freshwaterlily.com, and that has my story, information about me, my journey, and a way to help me fund getting there.
That's very cool. And how expensive is it? Like, what are we, do you have to get new gear, or is it like what you have sufficient, and just how much are we looking at? Like, how much does it take to get you where you need to be to really compete at this competition?
I mean, if everything was fully added up, total between travel, tournament fees, gear, it would be easily probably $5,000 more. So that's kind of the starting point. Obviously, I do have some sponsors to help me with gear and everything like that. But I am a student in school. I work, and so I am building, trying to save for this, and I have a lot of support. But I'm grateful for any support I do get from my community and my people.
What are you studying at Utah State?
Getting my master's degree in secondary teaching.
Oh, very cool.
Yes.
I was hoping you were going to say like marine biology or
I
something.
know.
Because that would be like really fitting. It's like you can get like, field work while you're doing
Right,
this.
right.
We
Hey,
get internship credit sometime.
credits,
Study abroad. Yeah. Well, Lily, congratulations on being able to be at this point.
Thank you.
Best of luck this week. Next week.
Yeah.
And we'll be trying to keep an eye on what's going on, try to follow along. And if folks want to help out, again, freshwaterlily.com.
Yep.
Best way to get all the details there. So best of luck in your opportunity to represent Team USA in New Zealand.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, no problem. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll go ahead and take a break. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Many thanks to Lily Jarvis for joining us on the show. World-class spearfisher.
Yeah, who would have known?
Yeah, right in our backyard. it's obviously, you know, in a Utah State student, no less. So obviously we love having those. I know it's a little out of the mainstream and it's not everyone's, you know, niche or niche. I don't know what the proper pronunciation of that term is. I always say niche, but
Something like that.
I think people have made fun of me for saying it like that. But yeah, it's always fun to do those interviews, learn more about, you know, some of the amazing people. You know, everyone's got a story.
Yeah, really cool that if somebody here from the state of Utah going to school here at Utah State gets to represent not only the state, but also the United States of America and compete in New Zealand. I'd love to go to New Zealand.
Yeah,
But she gets to,
nice.
yeah, it's competition and it's expensive to get there. So if any of our listeners are inclined to help her get there, every little bit adds up. Find out the details, freshwaterlily.com.
Yeah, there we go. So next on our docket of things to talk about is the Utah Jazz. A couple of things of news. One that kind of evolved from last night and kind of was updated a little bit this morning. And then we have some just straight up news that we had today. The Utah Jazz signing a player to a 10-day contract. They signed Mo Bamba to a 10-day contract.
They need some size in the low post.
Yeah, they do.
All their big guys are hurt.
I know
or out.
Mo Bamba has had, you know, some of the biggest hype behind him. There are people who believe that he was, you know, Victor Wembanyama before Victor Wembanyama, essentially. Or that might have been Bol. I don't know. There's been a few different guys that have kind of fit that, where like these supposed, you know, 7-foot unicorns and all that. And so there are people that believe in these guys, but then a lot of times it just doesn't turn out. But,
Yeah.
you know, Mo Bamba, he's been with a bunch of different teams. He's, you know, had decent runs of form. He's had some, you know, some seasons where he was a rotation player. His best year was when he started 69 games for Orlando. That was his fourth season in the league, averaged 10 points, 8 rebounds, but has kind of bounced around the league a lot since then. He played his first like 4.5 years with Orlando, but since then he's been with Philadelphia, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Pelicans, the Raptors, and now the Utah Jazz. He only played 2 games all of last season. Only played in 32 the year before that. He kind of got traded around a little bit. So this is kind of him. He's only about 28, I think. He's going to turn 28 either like right at the end of the season. So he's still, you know, I think technically in his physical prime. So this is a guy who can maybe try and make a bit of a comeback here.
Yeah, physically he should be able. A guy who's bounced around, hasn't really been able to stick anywhere. But could be some opportunity for him. Jazz need some guys in that low post.
Yeah, they need somebody. You know, Lauri Markkanen maybe out for the season. You know, Yusuf Nurkic is out. Walker Kessler's out for the season. So like,
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. Like, who do you have left in the front court? The Jazz basically have nobody. Like, they're going to be
Kyle
dipping.
Filipowski, and that's it.
Yeah, it's Kyle Filipowski, and I'm actually going to be looking at the roster here real quick just to remind myself who's on there. You got Filipowski. I'm trying to, you know, Kevin Love. They didn't get rid of Kevin Love, did they?
No, Kevin Love's still there.
Okay, Kevin Love's still on the roster. I'm trying to remember who they've maybe or maybe not traded.
Yeah.
But yeah, you basically don't have, you know, this roster technically has a bunch of 6'11", 7-footers on it, but pretty much all of them except for Kyle Filipowski are injured, and then Kevin Love. So yeah, just add somebody that's got some size, and they might have to dip into the. I don't think any of their 2-way guys. Like you've got Oscar Chibwe. He's 6'8", like technically a center, but a bit undersized there. So, but then again, your goal isn't to win games the rest of the way. Your goal is to just have enough players on the roster to be able to put guys out there.
Right.
And bigs
still have to field the team.
Yeah. And you know, while Isaiah Collier was able to play 48 minutes per game for like 3 straight games, centers are, I mean, quite literally built different. And it's harder for them to play that many minutes because there's a lot more of them to move around.
Right. Yeah, that's
so
true.
to speak.
The other Jazz news is that there were some rumors from, reporting.
Not just rumors,
I should say reporting from Tony Jones that the NBA was sending an independent doctor to verify the injuries sustained by Lauri Markkanen in practice. Because the report was that Lauri Markkanen injured his ankle and his hip in practice the other day and would require MRIs. Well, since then, there's been a little bit of backtracking, and Mark Stein even today reporting that the NBA is not sending an independent doctor to sit in on the MRI, but they will have access to the results. But that's standard practice.
Yeah, that's nothing new. That is something that's part of the CBA and all that.
But they're going to be taking very close attention to detail here, because the NBA is very upset with Utah, and for whatever reason, they have been singled out over everybody else who's doing a lot of the same things.
Yeah. Well, the Pacers, they also had their own mini controversy where the NBA was kind of reviewing the results of them sitting out some players, and they're like, well, can't you just
medicate them
and put them on the court? And it's like, yeah, because that sounds like something we should be doing. Like, yeah, that's what you did back in the 90s, is you just give them some pain pills or whatever, or maybe even not, just go out there and play. But yeah, that's something you do, like when it's game 7 and you rolled your ankle and you desperately want to play. That's a situation where you met a guy up and just like, all right, just go out there and play, and it be a pain tolerance thing. You don't just do that willy-nilly and have that be your solution. So that was the whole thing with the Pacers. But yeah, the report for the Jazz about the supposedly sending independent doctors, that came from Tony Jones, where his tweet, which he has since deleted, but he said, quote, "One thing I'm hearing about Lauri Markkanen's scheduled MRI. The league is sending independent doctors to verify." And to me, I think it just came across as he heard that independent doctors were going to verify the results of the MRI, and just lazily worded human mistake type of thing. I'm not really criticizing Tony Jones. I'm trying to explain we all have that moment where we didn't think it through when we write it and
slightly misinterpreted.
It is the kind of thing that has happened to me. Like, so I don't want to offer any criticism. It's mostly I'm trying to figure out exactly how this all went down. Because then Tony Jones comes out later doing the responsible thing of taking accountability for his actions. Like, that report spread like wildfire, especially around the Jazz, but around the NBA as well.
NBA.
All the aggregators picked it up. The 1,001 social media accounts who don't actually do reporting.
Rob Perez,
like Tony
Worldwide
Jones.
Wob started making memes.
That's the kind of aggregating I can actually appreciate.
Yeah.
But
funny things that Adam Silver would show up himself as a doctor.
Yeah, or like the memes, like the independent doctor was like Sam Presti, and it's like this is the doctor we've sent is Cam something, I don't know, whatever rhymes with Presti, like
from Oklahoma City.
Yeah, just like it's gonna be Sam Presti, because just met him up. You can do that. Lowry can play. It's like Lowry can't even walk, but. Because the Thunder really want that pick from the Jazz. But yeah, in the end, it just kind of ends up being a non-controversy. But that's sometimes the impact of reporting. A credible journalist makes a report, and you have a bunch of aggregators and even radio shows. Like, if we'd been on air when that report went out, we would have talked about it with the same fire that everyone would. Because I don't want to act like I wouldn't have said those same things.
And Jones is a respectable reporter.
Yeah, when he says something like this, you believe it.
He's connected.
But this is, again, it's
But it does illustrate. I mean, maybe to the extent that folks were going with it last night. It does illustrate, though, that the NBA is very serious about. We don't want any funny business over the last 2 months of this NBA season, and. We want everybody our goal is to have players play. That's what we want. Now, the Jazz are still going to find ways to put younger guys out there, give more opportunities to their inexperienced players. And Utah's got a lot of their key guys that are hurt. So they legitimately hurt. And so they're
but the NBA is getting suspicious on just how,
Yeah, but
just how convenient all these injuries are. All of your good players have suffered season-ending injuries.
Yeah, well, let's look at what's happening in Washington and other teams that are shutting down players.
But at least with the Jazz, like the Jaren Jackson Jr. one, like in Yusuf Nurkic, those are on the you could have waited, but you're doing it now.
Right.
But like,
or you could have played through it.
yeah. But like, the Jazz just had someone tear their ACL. Walker Kessler, like, the Jazz want to play him as much as they can for still development purposes. And then this Lowry Markkanen, like, I don't know, the scrutiny that the NBA is paying to tanking as opposed to, say, one of your star players circumventing the cap, like, that is way more important and needs way more resources and needs to be talked about way more than whether or not the Jazz are being honest about whether Lowry Markkanen hurt his ankle in practice. Like, come on, people.
Yeah. It's silliness, but with some of this, it seems less and less likely that Utah will get the ping pong balls their way that they want.
Yeah, I said this on social media, and I'm only half kidding when I say this. But we talk about where like the Jazz actually they're playing the Pelicans tonight, 7 p.m. And the Pelicans and Jazz are right next to each other in the lottery standings. The Pelicans have the 5th best odds as things stand now. The Jazz, it's 6th. If the Jazz overtake New Orleans, who the thing is, New Orleans is not motivated to tank because their pick's already going to Atlanta. They don't get their pick, so they're going to be pushing as hard as they want. So the Jazz could very well, lose this game, and New Orleans would push to win it. But even if the Jazz go to 5th, there's still a 0.6% chance they fall all the way to 9. And if they fall all the way to 9, they don't get the pick. And again, my only half kidding joke was, if there is still a mathematical chance that the Jazz can fall out of the top 8, it's going to happen. Because Adam Silver is so sick of Utah's crap. For whatever, apparently the Jazz are the only team that he gets mad about with tanking, because he seems to be the only one that he's really picked on.
Yeah, he's given Sacramento a pass.
Yeah,
he's given Washington a pass.
Given Indiana, they did find him $100,000, but like they're not that upset over it. And like these other teams, the Spurs tank, the Thunder tank, all these other teams tank, and Washington is tank. Like, but the Jazz are the only ones getting. They've been fined last year. They got fined this year. And so it's the one conspiracy in this world that I believe in is that the NBA is very willing to, put their hand on the scale, so to speak, of the lottery, somehow manipulate the ping pong balls.
It's time, after what happened last year with Cooper Flag, it's time that the NBA has full transparency. Adopt what the NHL does. Cameras are in the room.
Yeah.
They show everything. And so that it removes any doubt about funny behavior. Are there frozen envelopes? Whatever, where do the numbers look like? And so it's full transparency. That's how the NHL did theirs this last year. And it was interesting theater to watch.
Yeah.
And to learn about the process and how it works. And you're watching it in real time as it's happening. You're not just waiting for the reveal. It's part of the whole process. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think the NBA is at a point where they need full transparency.
Yeah.
Because what happened last year with Cooper Flag has everybody thinking there's funny business going on with the NBA. There are too many instances where it raises eyebrows, and where there's too much smoke, there's usually fire.
Yeah. And so that's where you just got to find a way to control. And to be honest, I feel like everything is just made up for by, hey, just give the Jazz like the 2nd or 3rd pick. Let them pick DeBonsa or Cam Boozer. To be honest, I kind of prefer DeBonsa, but like one of those two guys. There are 2 guys in this draft who have heavy connections to Utah and who you feel like would be right at home being stars in Utah.
Yeah.
AJ DeBonsa, went to his prep high school in Utah, he's gone to BYU, seems to love the state and is, immerse himself in the culture. And, Cam Boozer's dad is literally employed by the Jazz. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
He became a star because of his time in Utah.
Yeah. He was a decent player before. I can't remember where he was before.
He was at Cleveland.
Was it Cleveland?
He was a 2nd-round guy and went to Cleveland, had a couple of good years. Jazz saw potential in him.
And became like a star.
And the Jazz
went from good player to star.
Right. Signed him as a restricted free agent that Cleveland didn't match. And then he became a star paired with Darren Williams.
There you go. So yeah, it'd be nice if the Jazz could just finally actually they've made it very clear. Hey, it's just this year, and we're moving on from here. All these other teams at the bottom of the lottery, it's like we're going to be down here for as long as it takes. And the Jazz are like, we just need the one pick.
Yeah.
Again, if you want
look at our
storylines,
history, our track record as a franchise.
Yeah,
we do not like to be here.
Yeah, manipulate the lottery just this once. Again, it doesn't even have to be the number one pick. Just one of the top three. Let them take one of the two guys that would want to be here in Utah, especially DeBonsa, where I know Cam Boozer is tied to Carlos Boozer, but AD DeBonsa feels like he would be the perfect fit.
Yeah, especially with all the other pieces that Utah has.
Yeah, so that's something that's just this once, and then the Jazz are done. They're moving on. They'll pair them with all the guys they got, and they're off to the races for the playoffs. That's the result you want. The teams
they're going to be good boys and girls. They're going to follow the rules.
Yeah,
they're going to compete. They're trying to put out their best product every night.
Yeah, have the team.
You don't have to worry about that.
Have the team that's bad that needs a good player. Let them get that good player, and then they're going to go try and compete with the big boys, which is how this system is supposed to work. The worst teams get the best picks. They pick the best players. Those players turn out to be good. They make the team better, and so on and so forth.
Especially teams that struggle to attract free agents.
Yeah.
Or struggle with doing trades.
Yeah, some
guys will cancel trades or refuse to come.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like Tony Jones was reporting earlier, like the Jazz had were working out this trade with, they didn't specify who, but it was some wasn't like a superstar, but it was like
a win now move,
like a win now high level player, and so the Jazz were gonna do this trade, and the player or the agent said, "Now we want to go somewhere else." And it's like, well, what are the Jazz supposed to do? They're literally trying to do win now moves, but they say, nah, we don't want to.
Yeah. I know we need to move off and get to our next break, but news today in the Pac-12 doesn't affect Utah State now, but certainly we'll be looking at in the future. Former Utah State Athletic Director Scott Barnes, who's currently at Oregon State, met with Wayne Tinkle, their head basketball coach, who's been there for 12 seasons, and they mutually agreed to part ways. Now, it's unsure if he will finish the season or if he's done. There's only a few games left, but Oregon State's been struggling this year, last few years, frankly. But he did take his team to the Elite Eight and has a Pac-12 tournament championship on his resume. But last few years, it's been a struggle for the Beavers.
Yeah, they've not been able to live up to what they had in those kind of late years of the Pac-12 where they were a pretty solid team. We are going to take this next break. We'll be back after this talking about the transfer portal. What else are we going to talk about when we talk about college sports? It's the transfer portal. Some interesting potential rule changes, some potential punishments for teams who might look to exploit a loophole in the transfer portal, because it's not actually technically the transfer portal we're talking about. It's just basically the transfer portal. We'll have that next here on the Full Court Press. Indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during the dry winter months, and cause dust and allergens to float longer, sending them deeper into your lungs and making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air can install high-efficiency steam humidifiers. Use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. So got to be fairly quick on this one. We've got to hit another break, but potential rule change, kind of an emergency thing. They're talking as the report from the Associated Press was referring to this as emergency legislation in NCAA football. And essentially it's trying to close a potential loophole. We talk about this being the transfer portal, but it's kind of like transfers outside of the transfer portal. We've seen isolated cases. Kind of one of the higher profile ones is ended with Wisconsin suing, I believe it was Miami, because they had a corner who had signed a contract, an NIL contract with Wisconsin. Then he went to Miami. They basically blocked him from entering the portal, but he's unenrolled at the school and enrolled somewhere else. We also saw this with Jake Retzlaff. Different situation as to why he was leaving, necessarily leave willingly, or at least didn't want to leave until...
Oh, he could have stayed.
Yeah, he could have stayed, but circumstances had turned to where he suddenly wanted to leave.
Yes.
And...
If he wanted to play, he needed to leave.
Yeah, and so he unenrolls at BYU, enrolls at Tulane, ends up having to try and swipe some from some lower level power conference, and they'd go out and poach guys after the spring window. Well, that option has now been closed to them. But what people have realized, and I hadn't thought of this is why you have people whose job it is to think about these scenarios. They've realized, hey, there is still this potential loophole of just unenrolling at the school and re-enrolling in a new one. And, whether I think technically that may mean that you can have a scholarship, or I don't know, that may be part of it, but NIL will really easily pay for a scholarship if you got that money to throw around. And so, I don't know if it would be as widespread as the actual spring portal. There is real risk of teams getting to the end of spring ball and poaching either from Group of 5 or from other power conference schools, teams poaching from each other and just having players unenroll and then re-enroll and having that essentially be a spring portal window. And so what they've done is they've put out basically a bunch of penalties to a team if they try and do that.
Yeah, so basically the bottom line here is that you could be punished. A team could be punished if you add players to your roster who did not make public their interest in leaving and transferring away back in January.
Yeah, because if they entered the portal in January but sign in June, there is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You're in the portal, you can go.
Yep.
If you want to do that, fine. But if they weren't in the portal then, they can't suddenly jump in it now. So the list of penalties include being fined 20% of its football budget. They would also lose 5 roster spots for the following season, even if the coach who was part of that violation is no longer at the school. There's also the coach who, the head coach who accepted the transfer would be suspended for 6 games.
And would be prohibited from all recruiting. Yeah. It would be, suspended from on-field coaching, all team meetings for 6 games.
Yeah, so there's a long list of penalties there. So,
and 20% of your football budget, if you're at a high-profile program,
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. So we got to hit another break. And when we come back, we'll have pick 6. We wanted to go over that rule a little bit, but yeah, pick 6 coming up next as we wrap up the show here on the Full Court Press. Cache Valley's largest and most complete power sports service shop is now open at Young Power Sports Logan. They service all brands, all makes, all sizes, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and more. No guesswork, no shortcuts. Just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris, Ski-Doo, they handle them all. In and out, done right, guaranteed. Pickup and delivery is available within a 25-mile radius. Schedule your service call now at 755-7111. That's Young Power Sports Logan Service Department, 755-7111. So, Eric, it is time for the thing that we do, or at least try to do, every single week.
Yes.
It is time for Pick Six.
I bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day. No way.
It's the Full Court Press Pick Six.
Ever since March Madness ended, I am so bored.
6 things we think will happen this weekend.
I don't know how the whole betting thing started, but it's fun.
All right, Eric, you won last week. Grumble, grumble.
Let's go.
That means you get to pick who goes first.
I'm going to defer, so I'm going to let you go first.
All right, so here are my 3 lines. Utah State, they're taking on Grand Canyon this upcoming Saturday. They've struggled in rebounding the last few games. So their rebound margin against Grand Canyon over under -4.5.
So if I say over,
If you say over, that means that they will be within 3 rebounds
Closer to that,
or
maybe.
win the rebound.
more in Utah State's favor. I'm
Yeah.
going to take the over.
All right, I'm going to take the under.
Okay.
All right. So this is a weird one. There's the potential for the Sun Belt regular season standings to finish in a 7-way tie.
Oh, my word. What?
So there are 4 teams right now tied for first place. There are another 3 who are a game behind, and there's not a whole lot of teams there. Again, it's possible for all 7 of them to be tied by the end. That's just the long story short. So how many teams will be tied for first place after they all play this Friday in their regular season finale? I said the line at 3.5.
I have no idea who's playing whom. So they could be
Texas
playing
State
each
is
other.
among them.
I'll take the under.
All right, I'm gonna take the over. I'm gonna root for chaos.
Okay.
And then Jake Hall, New Mexico guard. They're taking on the Lobos are taking on San Diego State this weekend. Jake Hall points against the Aztecs over under 14.5.
He's been on a heater lately, but I'm going to take the under.
I'm gonna take the under as well. I was
Okay.
really hoping you'd take the over.
I'm going to go back to the Aggies and the Lopes on Saturday. Combined blocks between both teams, 4.5.
I'll take the over.
I'm going to take the under. Cody Williams for the Utah Jazz. Points, rebounds, steals, blocks, and assists.
Under.
So all the positive statistical numbers in the game tonight against the Pelicans. They play the Pelicans tonight and on Saturday night. So this is in tonight's game. Cody Williams combined. Points, rebounds, steals, blocks, and assists. 17.5.
Under.
I'll take the over. And then Nemish Keta. Points, rebounds, and blocks against the 76ers on Sunday, 6 p.m. on NBC, prime time. So Nemish Keta, points, rebounds, and blocks on Sunday, 10.5.
10, like combined all of those?
Combined points, rebounds, and blocks versus the 76ers.
Over.
I'm going to take the under.
The number I had in my head that I was thinking I would go over under on was like 16.5.
I don't know.
I mean,
76ers.
It's yeah,
Joel Embiid. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, it's Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's probably going to roll his ankle and not play half.
Actually,
the game.
he got hurt tonight, so I don't know if he'll
So yeah, see there.
fell pretty hard in a game going on right now.
See?
That was before I wrote this line, so I have to stay with it. Okay.
Do you lock yourself into your answer before you?
No,
even
I guess
go?
I could have. I still had the wiggle room to choose above or below. Okay, so here's my tiebreaker: Utah State gymnastics tomorrow night against Air Force. Utah State 195.25.
I'll go over.
Okay, I will take the under.
All right,
I'm forced to take the under on
Yeah,
that.
that's
I
true.
have no choice.
You have no choice on that one. So that's pick 6. We'll calculate these all on Monday, or I'll calculate them all on Monday, and then we'll see who won. We've been going back and forth the last few days. So
Yeah, and it's always comes close. The last several have been down to the wire.
yeah, been pretty solid. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, either on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, or on YouTube. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for more of the Full Court Press.